Football's back on the plains, and boy, is there a lot to be excited about.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Tuesday for a little Charlie Tuesday action, Auburn message board legend, Charlie 5. We both went to practice yesterday and have a ton to talk about. First things first, there were two guys in particular that we both kind of reconvened and talked in the lobby after our viewing window of practice was over, Charlie 5. Two guys that blew us away. We'll also talk about the depth chart, other practice notes, and what Hugh Freeze had to say to the media in his press conference after practice yesterday. Avery Jones, the transfer center, Charlie 5, looks like an NFL player. And talking to folks in the locker room and close to the program, it sounds like he's won over the team already just by how impressive he's been. Physically, he looks the part. Like, he looks like a guy that we haven't really had in a long time at center. He's big, he's wide, and when he moves, his feet are so far apart because he keeps that base. You're not moving him backwards, Charlie 5. No. Avery Jones, a transfer from Eastern Carolina, he stole the show for me.
Big time. I mean, and like you said, that was a name on offense especially on the line that was just consistent. Like everybody was raving over that guy. And it's funny how that whole situation played out, how he seemingly came out of nowhere as a commitment. We were kind of felt like we were on the ropes with not knowing what we were going to do at center after we lost Ben Jones. And then now this Avery Jones as Avery kid comes in, and he has it was Ben Scott, Avery Jones. I'm getting them mixed up.
That's fine.
Avery Jones comes in, and
Avery Jones is forever now. That's all we need to know.
The first practice, he's making defensive players turn their heads. He's making offensive players turn their heads. Big get there. And he's like you said, it's an NFL center that we should have starting game one.
The impact that he can have on this offensive front. And look, there were three transfers in the starting offensive line that we saw yesterday. Avery Jones started at center, Dillon Wade at left tackle, Gunnar Britton at right tackle. I had those guys flipped throughout the offseason, but that's where they lined up yesterday consistently. We only got to see individual drills. It sounds like that's where they lined up in team drills exclusively yesterday as well. Cam Stutz at right guard. Tate Johnson, who played center last year, at left guard. We'll see if that stays true over the next few weeks. But Charlie 5, the impact that Avery Jones and these other transfers had, I mean, it sounds like there was general conversation amongst the team afterwards about how much better Auburn's offensive line was in practice. I mean, what a great feeling.
Some of the things that we heard, like quotes like set the offensive line kind of set the tone of the practice. Like, when's the last time you've heard that? When's the last time you've heard that?
I don't know, man.
That's exciting. And then, I hate to jump around, but like looking at the running backs that we have, and then couple that with the offensive line setting the tone, like, man, got to get you excited.
Yeah, I mean, they were in soft shells, right? So no full pads or anything like that. But it sounds like it was a very physical practice, which is outstanding.
Love it.
Absolutely
love it.
All right, the guy that stole your heart yesterday.
Oh boy. You know, you have these. It's so amazing when you have like this vision of something, and then it comes true. Like I swear I've had like fantasies, fantasies about Rivaldo Fairweather playing tight end at Auburn, and since he signed, and he is an absolute problem. He is a monster. He can run all the routes. Yeah. He can jump. We saw a pass kind of get floated, and you think it's a throwaway, and he jumps too early, but just floats like a big.
It was from Holden, yeah, and it was kind of like
muscular angel.
It was beautiful. Yeah. But he's so like long that he carries that weight so well, where it's like, yeah, like you look at him like he's probably tight end, but he's wearing 13. So it's like, is that a big receiver? Like, who is that? Yeah, Holden Geriner is throwing. It's like a deep out, or it's an out-breaking route, like deep in the flat, right? That's what we're looking at here. And I'm with you. I thought he jumped for the ball too early because Holden put too much juice on it. Lofted it up. It was too high, we thought. But yeah, he just stays in the air. He like never dropped. He was in the air for like 3 or 4 seconds. It was beautiful.
Catches the ball like away from his body with his hands. And he doesn't look like a tight end when he runs. Like he's not quite as fast as like the top end receivers, but everything he does is so smooth. Like it is the way he runs routes, the way he comes in and out of breaks. He runs routes like a wide receiver, but he's just 6'5", 250. And he's an absolute monster. He is exactly who I thought he would be. Like from just first day in pads, he's exactly who I thought he. I'd love to know a little bit more about how he did in the team aspect of it. But like one-on-one, just the drills that he was doing, the position drills. Oh man, he looks good. When
I was talking to folks about team, his name didn't really come up, which is interesting. Also, in just kind of looking at those drills and the way the drill was set up, there was 2 quarterbacks would step in and they would throw at the same time. Both of either the right side of the field or the left side of the field, they'd both be looking the same way. And the inside guy would run like a shallower pattern, and the outside guy would run a deeper pattern, or vice versa. But there was always one shallow and one deeper, and they would always kind of know which way they were going before the drill started. And so you always saw on the left side, outside, you saw Camden Brown be the main guy, wearing number 4, looking very fresh. I'm like,
who's faster?
Like Tank's not Camden Brown. Single digits make you faster. It's very, very clear. Faster. And then battling for that slot on the left side, we were rotating in between. It was Javarius Johnson and Tarvarish Dawson in that left slot spot. And then to the right on the outside, 16's Malcolm, right?
Yes, Malcolm.
It was Malcolm Johnson Jr. and Nick Mardner, who was a lanky boy.
He is so long, guys. He is so big. Like he looks like he looks like a like Jabari Smith bit like size. I mean, he seems like he's got to be like 6'10", but I know he's 6'6", but he's just long and lanky. I mean, he is going to help us. If he can high point a ball, I mean, he is going to help us, and exclusively on the outside, like throw it up.
That's right.
Let him go.
That's deep. Right. Yep. And then the other slot receiver, Coy Moore and Jay Fair were the main 2 rotating at the right slot. So I don't know how much 4 wide receiver set we'd look at, but I think right now, if they had to roll guys out there from left to right, it'd be Camden Brown, Javarius Johnson, Coy Moore, Nick Mardner.
And then tight ends, it was obviously Rivaldo was the first one out, but the second one I saw out was Micah Riley Ducker was number 2 behind him.
It looked like they had Ducker. Yeah, they had those 2 together, and then they had Fromm and Deal together.
Frazier was out there too, I believe.
I didn't notice him. Now that you mention it, I don't think I saw a rep with him.
I definitely remember. Seeing him. He's 87, I think. If that's correct. Yeah, he was definitely out there.
Yeah. Okay.
And then one thing we missed, Landon King, exclusively outside receiver. So that's another big body on the outside to look out for. He was down the line, but outside receiver, not really lined up inside much. It was mostly outside from what we could see in the position. The first throw, I watched offensive line for a bit first, and I walked over to the quarterbacks and receivers. And the first throw I saw Robby make was like a hitch to Landon. And that's really the only thing I noticed. He didn't really do anything spectacular, but I came over a little later in that drill, so that's not entirely fair for me to say. But yeah, all in all, really, really solid action that we saw from there. I want to jump more into the depth chart and other kind of notes that we saw, because, I mean, we're barely scratching the surface here, Charlie 5. But today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Charlie 5, you know how fun it is to wager on all of your favorite sports action. I mean, let's just be very, very clear. I love action.
You love action, and you love FanDuel because FanDuel makes you happy. Look, it's over the midway point of the NBA season. You need to head over to FanDuel and get yourself right. And also, look, with the NCAA tournament coming around, you don't want to be that guy that's not involved in the action. Just having a bracket's not enough. Get involved with FanDuel. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, the NFL, and the Locked On Podcast Network. Other things to discuss. So I think the running backs order that you mentioned, it was always Jarquez Hunter, Damari Austin, Brian Battie, Sean Jackson, and then the walk-ons.
Yep. Nothing
really surprising about that, right?
No, Battie is he's not a big guy, but I'm anxious to see I'm still anxious to see what he can do. He's a little bit smaller than I expected.
There was a section of practice, Charlie 5, where Carnell kind of pulled his guys over and just was kind of like preaching to them about, like, you need to compete as far as pass blocking. He like told them how to, set their feet and all, which they all knew how to do already. None of these guys are newcomers because Battie did this at South Florida, but also just like preach to them, like, you guys need to be competing to be on the field on third down, and just kind of stressing the importance of being third down backs, which I don't know if you really need to do that, but it's certainly something that he thought that he needed to do at that point. And then like he did that for like a few minutes and they like took a water break or something. But I thought that was kind of cool to hear Coach Caddy talking to those guys, which was nice. Yeah. The drills involving, like, I always call them exchange drills. That's what we called them when I played in high school. But it's when you got a center and a quarterback and then a set of running back. And so there were 3 groups. Each had a center, each had a quarterback, each had 2 running backs, Charlie 5. And what we were looking at, the 3 groups from left to right as we saw it, Connor Lew was the center. TJ Finley was the quarterback. I think this is the second group. Correct me if you think I'm wrong here.
I think so.
And the running backs were Brian Battie and Luke Rebels. Okay. The middle group, which I think is the third group here, the center was Court Bradley, not Tate Johnson. It was Court Bradley. Tate Johnson seems to be a guard now. The quarterback was Holden Geriner. Sean Jackson was the running back, as well as Justin Jones. And then I think the starting group was Avery Jones, who we cannot stress enough how impressive he was. Robby Ashford, the quarterback, and then Jarquez and Damari were the running backs.
It's interesting. I guess you could have a whole show on that, on that breakdown.
We really could.
But
we really could.
The Holden thing was very.
Are you going to say it? Say what you said to me when we were leaving. Say it.
It was disheartening. It was disheartening.
He looks behind, man. He looked behind on everything.
I don't know if it's just. I mean, it is the first practice,
first day of practice,
and Hugh's not really had any time with him. But like, I mean, I'm just going to say it. Like, he's taking snaps from a walk on. He was handing off to walk ons, and honestly, he was throwing a lot to guys that just are at the bottom of the depth chart. So we said on the show last week that this is the spring, like, that he has to like shine. Like, this is he could be the biggest winner this spring.
It could be his spring. And in Auburn lore, this could be the Holden Geriner spring if he allows it to be.
I mean, and just being completely honest, he is way back at the back of the line to start off with. So I'm curious to see how reps will change, if they change, personnel, who he gets to play with, who he gets to go with moving forward. But it was essentially that. I mean, what Zac just told you, that was essentially the whole practice that we saw, and then what we've heard.
Yeah, and we saw 25 minutes or so. But talking to folks that were around for the team portion, which is the meat, right? I mean, it's not a scrimmage, but that's when you line up and you need to beat the guy in front of you and play your position. And it sounds like Robby was the best in team, and then TJ, and then Holden just didn't get as many reps.
Right.
Which is, I think that's telling, right?
Especially with the limbo that we're not 100% sure on with TJ. Like, for him to still be that far, behind.
I'd love to know the conversations that they had. I mean, conversations had to have been had between coaching staff, specifically Hugh and TJ. But
yes,
I mean, I put out my notes, my notes from practice, and people are like, I don't know if it was on Facebook or Twitter or both, and definitely Discord, talking about like, why is TJ even taking practice? And it's like, well, in the 20 minutes, like his arm's the best. Like of the 25 minutes that we saw, if you knew nothing about this roster, against Air, if you knew nothing about the roster, like you'd be like, yeah, number one's the best passer.
He's the best looking one he looks the best, looks the part. He throws very well whenever.
But we said this last spring.
Last year. Yeah,
we said it last fall. I mean, it is what it is at this point.
Right. No, you're right.
You spent a lot of time on the defensive side of practice. I spent more on the offensive side. Tell me kind of what you saw that stood out about the corner rotation.
So corner rotation, I thought the biggest thing that jumped out to me, and again, this was the first practice, and it was one or two position drills, but it was Pritchett 1, James 2, no big deal. But then it was Kay and Lee stepping in over JD Rim already. Wow. So I don't know if that was a just luck of the draw thing, but Kay and Lee, you could hear Coach McGriff calling his name all over the field, like good job, like just constant praise. He already looks like a DJ James or a Pritchett. Like he looks physically just as good as all of them. So
did he look short to you? That's the biggest knock against him is his height.
He did look a little bit shorter, but the rest of the body was there. So
his arms are good. I mean, his feet are awesome. Like, I mean, he's a good corner. Like he's going to be a special player,
phenomenal player for at least 3 years. So,
but I think where he lined up and who he was doing reps with is telling, right? I mean, those are outside corners that he was with.
Yes, no nickel. Like we talked about possibly he could be no. He is an outside corner, and he is right there in the rotation. The outside corner room is honestly we think we got all these DBs. It's actually kind of thin. There's only
Jalen going to safety makes it thinner.
It does. So really, there's only 4 guys there on scholarship until some of the newer guys. Are there any other? I can't even remember now if there's newer guys coming in. But it's a thin room.
Is JC Hart here yet?
Yeah, but they say he's going to play receiver. Like that's they say he's going to start off. But they said the last I heard some people talking
all about that. Yeah,
I've heard people talking that he may be up to like 6'2", 190 now.
He's bulked up. I saw pictures of him. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Well. Anything else on that corner?
Safeties was pretty much
it went chalk.
The starters that we've always seen. I was trying to think if there was anything that really jumped out there, but nothing. I mean, it was just the same guys that we've seen that are in the lead there.
Once they went team, the starting jacks rotated 50-50. It was Elijah McAllister and Dillon Brooks.
I saw Elijah McAllister looks really good in pads.
Number 11 is such a sweet number.
Yes, he's very tall. 11 makes you look even taller, I feel like. It's like it's like 2 towers. I think it makes you look tall. No, but he's tall and long. Dillon Brooks looks like he may possibly have bulked up a little bit.
Good.
He looked good out there. That room is also thin. Ron Roberts it's Roberts, right? He was exclusively with them from the time that I saw
with the Jacks.
With the Jacks, yeah. Okay. So, but yeah, that's how the rotation that I saw as well.
The starting defensive line was Jason Jones at the nose. Marcus Harris was at defensive tackle, that 3 technique. And then defensive end was Jeffrey Mba. Sounds like he's really coming along and winning more and more people over, which is outstanding. And the backup group was Justin Rogers, Lawrence Johnson, Messiah Nasili Kite. And the linebacker situation seems different based on who you talk to.
Yeah.
One person I talked to said Jake Levant and Wesley Steiner were the starters. Another person I talked to said Jake Levant and Demario Tolan were the starters. So it sounds like they're rotating those guys out.
And then when I saw, whenever they went to the 2 linebacker drill, like it was 2 guys in the middle, when I went up, the first group that went out was Eugene Asante and Wesley Steiner. So like maybe there wasn't a true, it seemed like set in stone rotation. I will say this. Keys and Tolan did their drills together every time, and holy cow, they look.
You
good.
like it?
They look so good. Keys is massive. Keys looks like he could be 6. I know he's only like 6'3", but he looks taller than everybody. And Tolan's just he's stocky and wide and fast. Like
Holden is going to mess some people up, dude.
Yeah.
Like he's a thick 230 and like moves so well with it.
Yeah.
So athletic. And we talked about this when we got him, right? Like limited snaps, but boy, the traits are there.
Yeah. That room with the addition of Keys and Tolan is
Charlie 5. If you can talk yourself into being okay with Eugene Asante, some people are on him. I like Eugene Asante. I just don't think he was in the right system last year. And it was dealing with a lot of stuff, right? With his father passing away and missing football. Like, I get it. I totally get it.
For sure.
If he can turn the corner and be like an SEC player, all of a sudden that room's great.
He actually, I mean, he's kind of a key. He could be a big key because I feel like you have 3 guys for sure that can play in the SEC with Tolan, Keys, and Cam Riley. And then Steiner's had flashes. Asante's played big time football. If you can have 4 guys, at least 4.5 guys that can play SEC football and spell each other, like that is a very deep room. And they're all, other than Asante, kind of young. I mean,
then you've got Robert Woodyard as well.
Robert Woodyard, I did not see a ton of him, but like he looks the part as well.
Yeah. So we'll
defensive
see exactly
line. I want to go back real quick. You're talking about Jeffrey Imba. I couldn't get really close to the defensive line. They were doing a lot of sled type drills. They were really, really working Imba. Like they were do it multiple times over, which you can say, hey, that's not good. Yeah. I actually think that's really good because he was with the starting group. Like you said, but it was like, let's get this down. Like we need it. That's the feel I got from it. Like we need you to be able to do this.
Right.
We're really, really working with you. So that's one of the things that kind of jumped out to me there.
All right. More things I want to talk about from practice, but I want to relate it specifically with what Hugh Freeze told the media at his press conference afterwards yesterday. All that coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Want to encourage you to join the Locked On Auburn Discord. It's free. All you have to do is click the link in the episode description down below. We talked a lot about practice observations in there yesterday, and we will continue to do so throughout all of spring. Be sure to join. So Freeze talked about there's no depth chart, which is cool, whatever. And then there's also, and I believe him, but like Harsin used the term like pecking order, right? Like, I don't know. You have to like tell them who to go out first. Like you have to.
Right.
So if you don't want to call it a depth chart, that's fine. But to say like it's wide open, I believe him when he says that. But just talking about how he's optimistic, how it was a great first day of practice, and just talking to folks that were in practice yesterday and that were also in practice throughout the Harsin era. And I'm like, how different is it? And they're like, dude, it's totally different. It's totally different. The energy and how up pace everything was. I mean, they're constantly moving. It sounds like it was already more challenging under Hugh Freeze than it was in any practice in spring last year. And to me, Charlie 5, that's pretty telling that they can already tell a difference after the first practice.
Sure. Like some of that, obviously, you got to chalk up to, you know, it was a bad experience and this is something new. So some of that you got to chalk up to that. But sure. I just listened to Hugh give his little speech about writing chapter 1 of our story before they went out. And like, just the vibe that he gives is different. It's night and day. Like it feels better. Like it feels better. It has to feel better to the players. Like it doesn't feel, it kind of feels like you got somebody that's got your back, not versus like just the coldness of the previous regime. So like, I'm sure the chemistry and the excitement around that has to feel different in a good way. So I'm glad. And like, not only did you feel it at practice, but like, that's what we're hearing. Like people felt like this practice was different than they've experienced in maybe since they've been at Auburn or at period.
And it sounded physical, Charlie 5, and you can't really do that unless you have an offensive line. And it just, the storyline, and we touched on it earlier, we kind of got away from it. The offensive line is vastly different than it was a year ago. And that was goal number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, maybe even more than that when it came to Hugh Freeze acquiring talent to transform this roster. It was all up front. And then the other stuff was just other things that you had to get done. But the offensive line was mission 1 through whatever number you want to go to. And it looks like they did it. It looks like they did it.
On the top end, yes. We're still thin. We're still thin, which is to be expected. So, but last year we were thin and we were not very talented. I'm just being honest. We just weren't. This year we have some talent. We got to keep building. You got to keep bringing in dudes. But yeah, I mean,
it's great.
And not only did you get good talent, but like it seems like it's going to pan out. It seems like it's going to pan out. It's already getting rave reviews. So
that's right.
That's what's exciting.
Charlie 5, how can people give you some love, brother?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at @the_Charlie_5 in the Locked On Auburn Discord, auburnlive.com message board, The Corner, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday on the Dad Bod Golf Pod.
You can find all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.